I am Matt with State of Flux here to talk to you about A Quiet Place Part 2, Quieter Place. Not quite the title, but John Krasinski really knocked it out of the park with that first film. The tightly woven, very atmospheric horror film. And I think he just really surprised pretty much everybody that he was capable of making something like A Quiet Place. And this film does suffer a little bit from redundancy issues that oftentimes sequels will get. However, what works best with this film, which I very much liked, I want to be upfront about that, is that he takes this small microcosm of a world that you experience in the first film and really broadens it, expands it. This isn't world building in the way that like a lot of films have been criticized lately. The monster universe over at Universal, the DCEU films have been criticized for their focusing on world building. This feels like an organic next step for the universe that is A Quiet Place. It pretty much picks up exactly where the previous film left off, and that really kind of works for the film. The kids have noticeably aged, but we'll be quiet about that. We'll keep that on the down low, as they say. What works best with the film is the fact that you really grew an attachment to these characters and this family in the previous film, and this really strengthens that. And the strength comes when the choice was made to essentially divide each character up, so you get to focus little bits with each of them. The scares in this film come pretty strong. It is, I would say, at times even more intense than the first one. However, it never quite reaches that monster in the house and she's giving birth scene from the first one. But the intensity is there the whole time because you have no idea, you have no roadmap with this series. This isn't like when you are watching like Game of Thrones or reading Harry Potter or know the next 10 Marvel movies that have been announced. There's no roadmap for this, so pretty much every character is on the table that could no longer be there. So that really works, and he leans into that a little bit. Your fear of the unknown. And I think in a contemporary setting, having lived through like a whole year of isolation, even though that wasn't an element of the film when he was making it, certainly is an element that really works now. The film chooses to isolate multiple characters throughout the film, and you feel that isolation. The camera is close to each of these characters in very intimate ways. Well, the scary things lurk just around the corner. And that is just proves the excellent filmmaker that John Krasinski is. The screenplay is pretty well written. It does have some things that I was not necessarily in love with. There's a super minor subplot that kind of is reminiscent to Lost with the Others storyline from the last half of the first season, most of the second, third season of that show. That they tinker with that a little bit in this film, and it just feels like padding that just does not need to be there in any way, shape, or form. But the film also kind of hits a lot of the same beats that the first one did, not unlike Aliens to Alien. If you watch them, the two films kind of mirror each other in a lot of ways. This kind of has that same effect to the first one. That said, this film does introduce a new character played by Cillian Murphy, who is just fabulous. He is such a good actor, and I really appreciated seeing him in this film. Emily Blunt really brings it again, and the two young kid actors are great, especially the young girl. Her name escapes me right at the moment, but she is absolutely fantastic, and she owns this movie. She was one of the best elements of the first one. She absolutely owns this one, which I'm happy to say. She is great, and there's some interesting things that Krasinski does. So the first film is essentially a family film put into a horror movie setting. This continues that journey, but the first one focused primarily on the parents. This one focuses primarily on the children, and the parallelism of how the parents are reflected in their children and their children are reflected in their parents is played with to great effect, especially in the concluding act. This film does kind of have an abrupt ending, as the first one did, and I think the first one played better with that abrupt ending. This one kind of necessitates a sequel, which I'm all for, but I'm also not in love with the idea of leaving demand for a sequel that may never come. That's not my style of filmmaking, but that's pretty much the only negatives I have about this. Otherwise, it's a very, very strong film. I give it a very strong 3 out of 4 stars. Go see this film. Go see it in a theater. See it with an audience. As I just came back from, the audience with this film is really quite great, quite engaging. There's great moments of release that happens during some of the tense scenes, and the film opens up with a really great intro from John Krasinski. His earnest honesty is something that's really appreciated, and I am very glad that he put that at the head of this film. He genuinely seems to care about the audience going out to see this film and cares that you see it in a theater, and I promote that as well. Anyway, Quiet Place Part 2 is a good journey, 3 stars out of 4, and I also reviewed Cruella earlier this week. Check out that review and leave your comments down below on what you thought of A Quiet Place Part 2, and what do you think will happen for Part 3, or will there not be a Part 3? Who knows? Thoughts down below.